Hey everyone, it's once again time for another exciting firmware update for the HeadRush Prime, Core and Flex Prime units. In this update, we've added 3 new exciting reverb and delay pedals, improved the MIDI capabilities across all units, and made some improvements to the cloning algorithm in our onboard amp cloner for Prime and Core, as well as the included ReValver Amp Cloner software. So let's dive right into this update and check out what's new. The main highlight of Firmware 4.1 is our all-new range of reverb and delay pedals, such as our C-Verb, the multi-delay, and the grain delay. Starting with the C-Verb, this is a convolution reverb IR loader that brings the sound of real spaces and classic hardware reverbs into your digital workflow. Unlike artificial algorithms, the C-Verb uses impulse responses, also known as IRs, to apply natural reverberation, whether that's concert halls, studios, or a vintage spring reverb circuit from a guitar amp. The convolution reverb IRs capture a space's unique sound by recording its reaction to a short burst, similar to a sine wave sweep, allowing the software to recreate its acoustic properties. With Firmware 4.1, we've included over 50 reverb IRs to get you started, plus support from importing third-party IRs via USB or Dropbox, just like our guitar cab IRs. When opening the convolution reverb, you'll see that we've got 4 main controls. The first is our high-pass filter that lets you roll off the low end, and it's great for cleaning up any rumble or tightening up the reverb space. Next, we have our low-pass filter, which can tame the high end, smoothing out any harshness in the reflections of our reverb. Then, we've got our wet control, which is your classic dry-wet blend, allowing you to dial in how present you want the reverb to be. And last, we've got tails, which will enable your reverb trails to continue naturally, even after you bypass the effect. This is one of those effects that can really be as subtle or as wild as you want it to be. So whether you're chasing ultra-realistic room sounds or trying to build some ambient textures, the C-Verb is going to open up a whole new dimension to your tone. Next up in our new effects added with Firmware 4.1 is our multi-delay. Now this isn't just your standard delay pedal. It's an advanced multi-tap delay that opens the door to intricate rhythmic echoes, spatial textures, and groove-driven delay patterns. The multi-delay gives you up to 4 separate delay taps. But here's the cool part. These taps don't have to be evenly spaced. Each one can have its own unique delay time and panning position in the stereo field, letting you build a truly immersive and evolving sound. Plus, the multi-delay allows you to create anything from cascading ping-pong delays to syncopated patterns that really give your playing a sense of movement and depth. So let's break down the key parameters when opening the multi-delay. The first control we have is our sync control. Set this to on to lock the delay time to your rig's tempo, or turn it off for a free floating delay time. Next we have our delay. This is your master delay time, and each of your 4 taps will base their timing around this value. Then we have our feedback control, which controls how many times the echoes repeat. Then we have our feedback loop. This one's quite clever. It defines which part of your tap pattern gets repeated in the feedback loop. If you want the full 4 tap sequence to loop, then set it to tap 4, input. If you want only 1 tap cycle, then leave it on tap 1. Next we have our character control, which adds tonal shaping to your feedback delays. Then a stereo, where you can choose whether your input is treated as mono or stereo, giving you control over wanting a more vintage sound delay or a more modern delay sound. Then we have our mix control, which is our classic wet-dry blend. And then of course tails, to toggle the reverb tail spillover when bypassing the effect. In addition to these controls, we also have our tap controls. It is here where we can turn each tap on or off individually, pan each tap left, right, or center, and set each tap's delay time relative to the master delay using ratios or percentages. This really is one of those effects that rewards experimentation. So whether you're syncing tempos for a tight groove, or using different tap timings to create a lush, unpredictable texture, the multi-delay gives you a ton of creative freedom. And the last of our new effects is the grain delay. The grain delay allows you to take your sound, slice it into tiny fragments called grains, and then rearrange and process them in ways that range from beautifully textured to completely chaotic. This pedal is especially powerful for experimental players or anyone into ambient, electronic, or cinematic soundscapes. But first, here's how it works. Individual grains are spawned from your input at a consistent rate, each with their own delay, pitch, and even direction. Combine that with a clever feedback and pitch processing, and what you get is a cloud of sound that can evolve, pulse, shimmer, or even glitch depending on how you shape it. Plus, one of the main functions on the grain delay is its freeze feature. You can assign this to a foot switch to instantly lock the current grain cloud in place, letting it float in the background while you play over it. Plus, we've made it so most of the controls still work while frozen, so you can morph the cloud in real time using the expression pedal, or parameter tweaking on the fly, which makes it a sound designer's dream. When opening the grain delay, the main functions will be our grain rate, which determines how fast new grains are created, our grain length, which is how long each grain lasts, our grain spray, which adds random delay to each grain timing, creating a scatter or smear effect, our grain pitch, which shifts the pitch of the grains, our pre-delay, that adds a fixed delay before grain clouds begin, feedback delay, sets how long before the grain cloud loops back into itself, our feedback, which is similar to our previous delay controls, which is how much of that looping happens, and our mix, which is our standard wet-dry blend. Next, we've got the tools to shape and space things out. Our grain direction plays grains forward or in reverse for a wildly different feel. Our grain smooth controls how soft or abrupt the grains fade in. Grain spread alternates grain panning left or right to widen your stereo image. And in addition to these controls, you also can adjust the delay sync, which syncs the feedback delay to your rig's tempo, delay character, adding filtering to the grain cloud, but not your dry signal, grain pitch quant, which keeps pitch shifting musically in key by quantizing it to the intervals, and a grain rand pitch that adds unpredictable pitch variation to each grain. And like with the other effects in the lineup, we have a tails control that lets you decide whether the effect fades naturally after bypassing it. So whether you're going for cinematic drones, glitchy rhythms, or you just want to turn your guitar into something otherworldly, the grain delay gives you total creative control over chaos. In addition to our new effects pedals, if you're running external pedals like this Strymon, then Firmware 4.1 is going to save you a ton of time when creating pedal boards with our new MIDI improvements. With this update, the HeadRush Prime, Core, and Flex Prime can now send up to 5 MIDI messages automatically when you load a rig, activate a scene, or press the foot switch. That means you can control your external gear, like recalling presets, toggling effects, or changing parameters, all without touching them. To send a MIDI message to an external pedal when the rig is loaded, simply tap the MIDI send button on the main hardware assign page. If you want a different pedal or setting per scene, then simply in scene edit mode, tap the MIDI out button and assign a custom message here. And if you want to trigger something live with your foot, select one of the foot switches from the hardware assign page, then choose MIDI out, new edit, and dial in exactly what you want it to send. Each of these methods opens the MIDI out message page, where you can send program changes, control changes, or even note on or off commands, depending on what your gear supports. In this example, I've set up a rig that changes the preset on the Strymon every time I tap foot switch A, allowing me to change from bank A to bank B on the Strymon with just one tap on my HeadRush board. So whether you're syncing delays, switching amp channels, or triggering synths, this new MIDI control gives you a lot more power without adding any complexity to your rig. In addition to sending MIDI messages, if you're running a DAW or a MIDI controller, this update just made integrating your HeadRush Core, Prime, or Flex Prime a lot more powerful. We've added significantly more control over your HeadRush device externally, which opens the door to some serious automation. Just connect your controller or DAW via 5-pin MIDI, the 3.5 MIDI input, or even a USB port on the Core and Prime, and you're good to go. So here's what you can do with incoming MIDI messages. You can switch scenes remotely during a live set or studio session, load entire rigs with a single MIDI command, sync global tempo from your DAW, and loads more like toggling specific effects blocks or adjusting parameters on the fly. This feature is a necessity for any players who want hands-free control, or for producers and performers who want tight integration between their HeadRush gear and the rest of their rig. In this example, I've got a DAW automating scene changes on the HeadRush board mid-song, so my tone can evolve without me ever touching a foot switch. Before we wrap up, let's run through some extra upgrades in this update that makes the whole HeadRush experience even better. First up, Amp Cloner just got another upgrade. You'll notice a big improvement on how it captures low end and tonal nuances, especially with fuzz pedals, high gain amps, and edge-of-breakup tones. The cloning process is also more accurate and consistent across the board in our onboard Amp Cloner for Prime and Core, as well as the included ReValver Amp Cloner software. Next, there's a new output level parameter added to all HeadRush and ReValver amps. For players with a bass or an extended range guitar, the built-in tuner now includes a range setting, which helps with a faster and more accurate tuning for those lower pitched strings. If you use a metronome, you can now set the time signature to 0 to turn off all accents. There's also a much improved foot switch layout in the practice tool for Core and Flex Prime users, making it even easier to navigate on the fly. And if you're using the HeadRush Remote web app, you can now access both the tuner and global settings directly from there. So what are you waiting for? Connect your HeadRush Prime, Core, and Flex Prime to your local Wi-Fi and update to Firmware 4.1 and start making the most of these new exciting features.